Welcome back to Jeremy's podcast, Living Free. Sorry, guys, it took me so long to get episode 4 down with all the holidays and everything going on. I hope everybody out there had a good holiday season and everybody was safe and just trucked forward on their recovery and with their mental health and continued to move past hurdles and things like that. Last time I left off of when we lived in Camas and we had our own restaurant. I was married to my first wife, and I think I left off to where I was going to leave the restaurant and go back to California, call my ex-wife, and decided that maybe would give it another shot. Went out to California, Clear Lake, Oaks, just a little west of Sacramento, California. And when I went out there, stayed out there probably for a few months and then just realized that it was not going to work. It was just, that relationship was dead. And so I ended up calling my sister-in-law, and which is married to my brother that was a partner in the restaurant, and she's originally from down south, Texas, Alabama, Florida way. She's knows a lot of people down that way, so I ended up calling her. She put me in contact with somebody that owned AJ's Seafood and Bar. So I left California, had my dad come out and give me a ride to the airport, packed all my stuff, and flew to Pensacola, Florida. From there, Greyhound to Fort Walton Beach, spent the night, and then the next morning got up and taxied into Destin, Florida, which is a college party town. And anybody that knows addicts in a college party town, that probably wasn't the best place for me to go, as I'll explain. But it was, at the time, it was fun. It was a good job. I got hired right on. That's kind of what I did in California anyway, was cook. And then when I moved out to Utah and opened our restaurant, that's what I did. So I just kind of fell into place. It was easy for me to do that. It was not hard for me to adjust. So I lived at Motel 6 for probably a month, maybe 2 months, and then got in connection with a guy that had a condo that rented a couple of rooms out. So I ended up moving over there. Went to work every day. It was kind of the normal there to drink while you were working, or after work, go up to the upstairs bar and just, party all night. And that bar didn't close till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So, it eventually took its toll on me. I, was drinking more and more now that, especially I was single, and I kind of, I guess in a way, didn't have anybody to answer to or kind of look out for me, I guess, in a way. So stayed out there, stayed working out there, living with that gentleman, renting a room. Came to the point where I was trying to drink whatever I could. Anything I could find in the house, I would drink. People there were partiers as well. They were college kids. Down that way, they hire a lot of Russian immigrants to come over and give them work visas and stuff like that. So some of the roommates were from Russia. So you know how the Russians like their vodka, and and the gentleman there liked Crown Royal. So eventually it got to the point where, he just asked me if I would please move out, and he'd give me back my refund and everything. And so I started looking for a place. I found a place over in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. A lady was renting a room, moved over there, and then come to find out that she was a pill addict or heroin addict, and so she did her thing and I did mine, and ended up becoming romantically involved. So I didn't really have to pay rent while living there, and so that gave me more paycheck money to spend on booze and marijuana, and just started to kind of downward spiral, and just ended up, booze was more important than working, and This work was just a big party when I was there. After work would be a party. I'd go home late. It was taking its toll on me, getting less and less sleep every morning, trying to get to work and having no vehicle, taking the public transit over there, which was cheap. It was like a couple bucks, but so eventually I just quit that job and stayed around in Fort Walton for a while with this girl. Like I said, romantically involved. Things, eventually, like I said, spiraled out of control, and I, lost my job over AJ's, and just didn't really have any more money to fall back on, and was kind of down on my luck, and my mental health was starting to kind of flare back up. I was not taking my medications that I should have. And everybody knows that when you're on antidepressants, you just can't stop cold turkey. It's not good for you to do without a doctor's recommendation to stop that. So I ended up calling back home to my mother and father, and they bought me a one-way ticket back home to Utah. Went back home, stayed with them. That's kind of when I first realized that I needed to change my pattern in life. That was the first time in my life that I kind of realized that I had a problem, that there was, I needed to make some corrections and move forward and get out of that lifestyle. And so I would go a couple of days without and then fall back and drink, and then same pattern over and over and over, and just, by myself at home. My mom and dad both worked at that time still, and just it was not a good lifestyle for me. I mean, they helped me out as much as they can, just like they most parents do for their kids, is they will allow to help out as much as they can, and not give into your addiction, but they knew what was going on, that I was drinking heavy and falling into depression even farther. And I remember one day walking over to the gas station, getting a couple of 24-ounce beers, and coming back home and drinking them. And I'm pretty sure I went back to the store and maybe got two more. I mean, I used to drink natural light, so it was pretty easy to and affordable to get. I mean, it wasn't real hard. So came back home with the second set of beers, drank them, continued, having a good time, whatever, and then wanted some more, but didn't have the money to get more. So I come up with this scheme of, how can I get some more money? So thinking and just, going back and forth and trying to figure out everything that's going on in my life at the time, and trying to press forward and everything else. I took a pad of paper out of the drawer and a black Sharpie marker and write a bank robbery note. So I'm intoxicated for one, but then I write this note about how I'm going to rob give me all your money and da-da-da-da-da. So I end up calling, a friend, and he gives me a ride to the bank, and we park in the back parking lot, and I tell him I'm going to go cash a check, and I go into the bank, and I'm nervous as hell. I ask them if I can use their bathroom, and so they have a bathroom in the basement, so I go down in the basement, and I, down there psyching myself up that, you got to do this, you're in here already, what the hell are you doing, and so I go back upstairs. I think there was one other customer, maybe somebody at the drive-thru, but I go in there, and I go up to the teller, and I slide this note across, and I can see the look on his face. He's terrified. He's probably never been robbed before, and so he ends up handing me a stack of money that's pre-enveloped, and I go right out the opposite door I came in, went right back to the car. We take off, going down the road. There's, on the way back to my house, there's just lines of police lights, and so we pull over just like abiding, like we're abiding the laws, and and he doesn't know anything, but I know that I know exactly where they're going. I mean, they're going to the bank that just got robbed. And so I get home, and and mind you, I'm like 135 pounds at this time, and I'm terrified. I mean, I've never done something like this, and I mean, the crazy thought that went through my head, why I thought I could rob a bank, I have no idea. But with intoxication, depression, everything setting in, I did it. I take full responsibility for that, and I'm try to move on past that and keep moving forward. And but anyway, so we get home, and he drops me off, and then he takes off, and so then I go back upstairs, and I'm get the money out, count it, and there's, I don't know, like $7,000 or roughly around there somewhere, give or take. And then I'm trying to think, what's my next plan? This is going to be on the news tonight. There's going to be all this stuff going on. I'm just like, I'm not prepared for this. I didn't think the whole thing through and whatever. And so I put the money underneath my mattress upstairs on my bed and go downstairs and kind of like pacing back and forth. And what am I going to do? What the heck? What's next? What's my next move? And so I go outside to smoke a cigarette just as SWAT is pulling up. And, I mean, cars everywhere surrounding the house. And they tell me to get on the ground, put your hands, the routine, put your hands behind your back, arrest me. Put me in this canine vehicle with this dog right next to me. It just keeps barking and barking and over and over. I mean, it's like bad enough that I'm thinking now that, oh shit, man, I'm in deep shit. And, then I got this dog barking in my ear that wants to rip my face off as well. I mean, because technically I'm the bad guy. So then they go in, do their investigation, whatever, find the money, they processed the note. They got my face on surveillance, and so I go to Lehigh City Police Station, and it's kind of getting later about that time because it was around 4 o'clock when I robbed the bank. And I remember them asking me if I wanted to talk to them about it or whatever, and I was like, no. And finally, they kind of like show me some evidence that they had or whatever, and I was pretty much smoked. So I decide, to bargain with them. Hey, I'm probably going to jail for a while, whatever. I want a couple smokes, and then I'll talk to you guys. So they let me go out and smoke, and I do that, and then I talk to them, and basically admit that that's me in the surveillance videos, and I mean, obviously you can tell. And besides, they traced the money back to my house and everything like that. And so they take me to Utah County Jail, where they book me in on a first-degree felony, 5 to life, and a second-degree obstructing charge. Start going through the court process there. My public defender's trying to get me to convince me that I need to plead guilty so the feds don't pick my case up. And I'm just like, I'm not going to plead guilty to a first-degree robbery charge when I didn't have a weapon. It's not aggravated unless you have a weapon. So I'm telling them, no, we're going to go to court, make me a deal, make me an offer, and then I'll think about pleading guilty. And I think it was like maybe the third court date, and we finally went in there, and my public defender came up to me and said, well, there's good news. They're going to offer you a second-degree robbery charge and drop the obstructing of justice charge. But the bad news is the feds picked up your case, so the state's going to drop their case. So later that day, the FBI comes and picks me up, doing a swab test in the back seat. That's kind of crazy. And then they used leg shackles to handcuff me. Took me to the federal courthouse in Salt Lake and to book me in there and see the magistrate and things like that. And the marshal there was giving them a hard time because, like, you guys don't have any handcuffs. You had to use leg shackle irons to, So at that time, it's the old courthouse, and it's downstairs in this basement. I think there was like 3 or 4 cells, and they kind of segregated to counties that held. I think one was like Tooele, and one was Davis County, and one was Weber County, and there might have been a couple more in there too. But So they put me in this holding cell. I'm going to go to Weber County. I go up and see the magistrate, and she does her thing and whatever. So I end up going to Weber County Jail, where I stayed for pretty close to a year while going through the court process, everything like that. My federal public defender was a pretty nice guy. I mean, it seems like they fight a little more for you in the federal system than they do in the state system, but that's besides the point. So they process me. I'm okay, pled guilty, whatever, going back in front of the judge, and he says, okay, well, you should be doing 3 years in prison for this with what your matrix and everything says, but I know alcohol was involved, and it sounds like you realized you have a problem, whatever. If I only give you 2 years, can you, don't come back in front of me for violating or anything like that when you get out, or I'll send you back to do the rest of your time. And so the judge treated me very fairly, gave me 2 years with 3 years probation after that. So finally left Weber County toward the end of that first year, flew into Pahrump, Nevada, where there's a federal holding facility waiting to be transported to the federal prison. Stayed there for about 2 weeks, just shy of 2 weeks, I think, and then ended up going to Florence, Colorado, to an FCI medium-high security prison. That's where I stayed for the remaining amount of my time. Prison was, at the time, I always say it was a blessing, because there was no way I could get sober on my own. I had to be in a controlled environment to do so. I mean, I know that you can get whatever pretty much you want in prison, whatever, but I had made my mind up at that time that I was going to take this opportunity to make a plan of how to better myself and how to move on with my life and do it for the better. And so I stayed there for a year. I did a lot of exercising, weightlifting. There was weights on the yard. Sat, with my people from Utah. I joined their car, was what they call it, just, to make sure I had backing, because, prison's a scary thing, that's not easy on your mental health as well. And stayed there for about a year, like I said. Eventually got out. They don't do parole anymore in the federal system. It's just probation, so you know exactly how much time you're going to do and when you're going home. And they said, well, you can get out a month earlier if you want to go to a halfway house. And I've just heard horrible things about halfway houses, so I decided, no, I'll just stay the extra month and then go straight home. My parents came out one time and visited. It's pretty far from Utah to Florence, so they came out and visited once, and then they actually came and picked me up at the Greyhound station where they drop you off to bus back to Utah to check into your parole officer. And so we drove home, and I ended up staying with them again. Had a plan. Ended up, I wanted to build my own food truck. I was in the food business at the time and just really knew a lot about it. So I ended up buying an old bread truck from Franz out of Idaho, and decided that I was going to build this food truck. Well, it probably took me 2-3 years to finally complete it, but I ended up completing it and ran that business. Also working full-time for a family friend that had a brother in an oil recycling business, and gave me a job as soon as I got home from prison, which helped and obviously makes you compliant with probation and everything else. And, living my life the way I wanted to. I didn't smoke. I didn't drink. I was sober, for the first time in probably, at that time, at least probably 15, maybe even 20 years, that, I finally wasn't letting a substance run my thoughts or my mind. And got back on my mental health meds, and just things were, going really well. And then I got laid off from the oil business, and so I had a brother working at a hair extension place that sold beauty cosmetics. I did some Amazon sales and things like that. So I ended up moving up, going up there, and then ended up becoming the warehouse manager there, running my food truck just part-time, doing really well, just trying to concentrate just on myself. Decided that I wanted, maybe to approach dating again, and so then I go back. I'm like, well, what do? You used to meet girls at the bar, and different things that doesn't, you don't do that anymore. What's the new thing people are doing? I didn't really know how to date. That wasn't a big thing when I grew up. We just hung out, partied. So this was a new experience for me. So I went on to christianmingle.com, where I messaged a lady named Rebecca. Met her for coffee a couple of times, went on a couple of dates, decided that, we were, pretty compatible together, and she was sober and a good lady. We both had no kids, and so we dated for a while, and then eventually decided that, I was going to ask her to marry me. Asked her dad if it was okay if I, took her daughter's hand and I wanted to marry her, and he, of course, said yes. So decided to get married to her. I think it was 2017-ish was when we got married. Running a food truck. She worked full-time. She's been at the same business for 20-something years. She's really educated. She's, has a really good job, and so this was really good for me, somebody sober and things like that. So we're, get married, we rent an apartment and stay there for maybe about a year, and then we buy our own house. And I'm just, things are just coming, really good for me, and things are just amazing, and, keep going, and everything's good, and, things just keep getting better. When you'll be surprised how well things start to fall in place when you have a clear mind and you can think and you can adjust to life and make rash decisions and decide what's best for your health and stuff. I mean, it's an amazing journey to do that, and but that's probably going to end it for this episode. Remember, guys, that you're worth it. I love you guys. I'd like to give a shout out to, if you donate to money to keep this podcast going. It's not for me personally. I like to use that money for, to help others that maybe can't afford treatment, try to get in connection with people that like the Phoenix and things like that help people. And I just want to give a shout out to everybody that donates money. That I appreciate it. I love you guys, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks.